The secure telephone line crackles to life in Supreme Allied Commander Dwight Eisenhower's tactical headquarters, January 12, 1945. 4:17 a.m. The voice on the other end belongs to Lieutenant General Kenneth Strong, Eisenhower's Chief of Intelligence. His words cut through the pre-dawn darkness like a blade. General, the Soviets have launched the largest offensive in human history. The entire German Eastern Front is disintegrating. Eisenhower sits up. Coffee grows cold on his desk. How large? 2 million men, 6,000 tanks, 7 armies attacking simultaneously across a 300-mile front from the Baltic to the Carpathians. Silence. Then Eisenhower asks the question that will reshape the final months of World War II. How long until they reach Berlin? The moment. Everything changed. 3 days earlier, Soviet Marshal Georgy Zhukov had stood before a map of Germany in his field headquarters near Warsaw. Red pins marked the positions of the First Belarusian Front. Blue pins showed German Army Group A. The ratio was staggering: 7 Soviet soldiers for every German, 10 Soviet tanks for every panzer. At 5 a.m. on January 12, 1945, 25,000 Soviet artillery pieces opened fire simultaneously. The barrage lasted 107 minutes. German soldiers in forward positions simply vanished. Entire divisions ceased to exist. Within 6 hours, Soviet armour had penetrated 15 miles into German lines. Within 48 hours, Army Group A was in full retreat. Within 72 hours, intelligence reports were flooding Allied command centres across Europe. The Eastern Front wasn't just collapsing, it was evaporating. The intelligence bombshell Major General Francis de Guingond receives the first confirmed reports at Montgomery's headquarters in Brussels, January 15th, 11:23 p.m. German radio intercepts paint a picture of absolute chaos. Entire Wehrmacht divisions streaming westward in panic. Soviet armoured spearheads advancing 40 miles per day, faster than the German retreat at Stalingrad. De Guingond grabs the secure telephone. "Get me General Bradley immediately." "Sir, it's past midnight." "I don't care if it's Christmas morning. Get him now," Omar Bradley answers on the second ring from his headquarters in Luxembourg. His voice is groggy, irritated. "This better be important, Francis." "Omar, you need to wake up Eisenhower. The war in Europe just changed completely." De Guingond reads from the intelligence summary. Soviet forces have captured Warsaw. They're 50 miles from the German border. At current speed, they'll reach the Oder River in 10 days. The Oder is only 40 miles from Berlin. Bradley's voice sharpens. "Jesus Christ. How did we miss this?" "We didn't miss it. Stalin deliberately kept us in the dark. No coordination, no warning. He's racing for Berlin, and we're still stuck west of the Rhine." The Emergency Conference Churchill's War Room, London, January 16th, 1945. 3 a.m. The Prime Minister sits in his blue siren suit, cigar clenched between his teeth. Maps cover every surface. Red arrows show Soviet advances. Blue arrows show Allied positions still hundreds of miles from the German heartland. Foreign Secretary Anthony Eden enters carrying the latest dispatches. "Winston, the Americans are requesting an immediate conference. Eisenhower wants new directives." Churchill studies the map. His finger traces the Soviet advance. "They're not just trying to defeat Germany, Anthony. They're trying to occupy Germany. All of it." "What do you mean?" "Look at the speed. Look at the objectives. This isn't about military victory anymore. This is about post-war control." Churchill grabs his telephone. "Get me Roosevelt immediately." "Sir, it's 10 p.m. in Washington." "I don't care what time it is anywhere. The future of Europe is being decided in the next 72 hours. Roosevelt's dilemma. The White House Situation Room buzzes with activity. January 17th, 1945, 2:30 a.m. President Franklin Roosevelt sits in his wheelchair, studying intelligence reports from the European theatre. His hands shake slightly as he turns the pages. Secretary of War Henry Stimson stands beside him. "Mr. President, we have a fundamental choice to make. Do we accelerate our own offensive to keep pace with the Soviets, or do we maintain our current timeline and risk letting them occupy all of Germany?" Roosevelt's voice is weak but determined. What's Eisenhower's assessment? He believes we can cross the Rhine within 2 weeks if we commit everything, but it would mean enormous casualties. General George Marshall steps forward from the shadows. "Mr. President, if we don't act now, Soviet forces will reach Berlin before we even cross into Germany. Stalin will control the entire Reich." Roosevelt closes the intelligence folder. "Get Eisenhower on the telephone. Tell him to prepare for immediate action. We're accelerating everything." The Strategic Revolution, Supreme Headquarters Allied Expeditionary Force, Ramdas, January 18, 1945. 6:00 a.m. Eisenhower stands before a massive map of Western Europe. Red pins mark current Allied positions. Black arrows show planned Soviet movements based on the latest intelligence. The math is devastating. At current Soviet speed, Berlin falls within 3 weeks. Allied forces won't even reach the Rhine for another month. General Walter Bedell Smith, Eisenhower's chief of staff, enters carrying a classified message. "Ike, Churchill and Roosevelt have agreed. We're authorized to launch immediate offensive operations across the entire Western Front. All previous timetables are cancelled." Eisenhower's expression hardens. "What about casualties?" They said, and I quote, "acceptable losses in the service of strategic necessity." For 30 seconds, Eisenhower says nothing. He studies the map, calculates distances, weighs lives against political outcomes. "Get me Montgomery, Bradley, Devers and Patton. Emergency conference in 1 hour. We're rewriting the entire campaign." Patton's response. 3rd Army Headquarters, Luxembourg, January 18, 1945. 2 sus p.m. Lieutenant General George Patton slams his fist on the map table. "God damn it, finally. I've been telling you people for months that the Russians are the real enemy." His staff officers exchange glances. Patton's anti-Soviet views are legendary, but this time the evidence supports his instincts. "Sir," says Colonel Oscar Koch, 3rd Army Intelligence Chief, "if current Soviet advances continue, they'll control everything from the Baltic to the Adriatic within 60 days. Patton grins fiercely. "Not if I get there first. How fast can we reach the Rhine?" "Sir, crossing the Rhine in winter conditions against prepared German defences, we're looking at massive casualties." "Colonel, I'd rather lose American boys fighting Germans than hand half of Europe to Stalin on a silver platter. How fast can we move?" Koch checks his notes. "If we strip every reserve, commit all armour, ignore flanks completely. 10 days to reach Mainz. Do it. Issue orders immediately. 3rd Army advances at dawn." Montgomery's calculation, 21st Army Group Headquarters, Brussels, January 19, 1945. 7:30 p.m. Field Marshal Bernard Montgomery spreads aerial reconnaissance photographs across his desk. Soviet tank columns stretch for miles. The imagery is less than 24 hours old. His intelligence officer, Brigadier Edgar Williams, points to specific formations. "Sir, the 1st Belarusian front alone has more tanks than our entire expeditionary force. They're moving faster than we thought mechanized warfare allowed." Montgomery's precise mind calculates possibilities. "Edgar, what happens if we fail to match Soviet speed?" "Sir, they occupy Germany, all of it. The zones we've negotiated become meaningless. Stalin controls Central Europe." Montgomery lights a cigarette. "And if we accelerate our offensive to match theirs?" "Enormous casualties, sir. We'd be attacking prepared German positions in winter, but we'd maintain our ability to influence post-war arrangements. Prepare Operation Veritable for immediate execution. We attack across the Rhine in 48 hours. Sir, that's 3 weeks ahead of schedule. The schedule just changed, Edgar. The Soviets changed it for us. The race begins. By January 20th, 1945, the entire character of the Western European campaign has transformed. Operation Veritable launches ahead of schedule. British and Canadian forces assault German positions along the Rhine with desperate intensity. Operation Grenade follows immediately. American forces cross the Roer River in strength. Third Army spearheads drive toward Frankfurt with reckless speed. Every decision reflects the same calculation. Political control of post-war Germany matters more than military efficiency. But the Soviets maintain their devastating pace. January 25th, Soviet forces reach the Oder River. January 30th, Zhukov's spearheads establish bridgeheads only 30 miles from Berlin. February 2nd, 3 Soviet army groups control all territory east of the Oder-Neisse line. The race for Germany has become a race against time itself. The Frankfurt Decision 3rd Army Command Post near Frankfurt. February 5th, 1945, 4:45 a.m. Patton studies reports from his lead elements. German resistance along the Rhine has collapsed faster than anyone expected. Frankfurt falls within hours, but the intelligence reports from the Eastern Front grow more alarming daily. Sir, reports Colonel Robert Allen, Soviet advance guards have reached the outskirts of Berlin. They're conducting reconnaissance for a final assault. Patton's jaw tightens. How far are we from Berlin? 300 miles, sir, but we'd have to fight through the heart of Germany, every major city, every prepared position. And the Russians? 30 miles, open terrain, German forces in full retreat. Patton grabs the field telephone. Get me Eisenhower immediately. Sir, Supreme Headquarters doesn't expect. I said immediately. The call connects after 8 minutes. Ike, we need to talk. The Russians are going to take Berlin in the next 72 hours unless we do something dramatic. Eisenhower's voice crackles through static. What do you recommend? Give me everything. Every tank, every plane, every reserve unit. I'll drive straight to Berlin. We can still beat them. Silence on the line. George, the casualties would be enormous. Ike, if we don't try, we'll be explaining to Congress why Stalin controls the German capital. The final calculation. Supreme Headquarters, Reims. February 6th, 1945. 11:00 p.m. Eisenhower sits alone in his office. 3 sets of casualty estimates cover his desk. Scenario 1. Maintain current pace. Minimal additional casualties. Soviet Union occupies Berlin and most of eastern Germany. Scenario 2. Accelerated offensive toward Berlin. Estimated 50,000 additional Allied casualties. Possible joint occupation of German capital. Scenario 3. All-out race to Berlin. Estimated 100,000 additional Allied casualties. Unknown probability of success. The telephone rings. General, President Roosevelt is calling. Eisenhower picks up the receiver. Mr. President. General, I've been discussing the situation with Prime Minister Churchill. We need your best military judgment. Can we reach Berlin before the Soviets? Eisenhower looks at his maps one final time. Mr. President, militarily possible, politically essential, humanly costly. General, the future of Europe may depend on the next decision. What do you recommend? The decision, February 7th, 1945. 2. M. Eisenhower makes the call that will define the end of the war. All Army Group commanders, this is Eisenhower. Execute Operation Eclipse immediately. All forces advance toward Berlin with maximum speed. Political objectives now take precedence over casualty minimization. Within 6 hours, Allied forces across the Western Front receive new orders. The race for Berlin begins in earnest. The Eastern Front's collapse has changed everything. The military war against Nazi Germany becomes a political war against Soviet expansion. The outcome will determine whether democracy or communism controls Central Europe for the next 50 years. Every hour matters. Every mile matters. Every decision carries consequences that will echo through generations. The Allied response to the Eastern Front's collapse transforms World War II's final chapter from military necessity into geopolitical emergency. History hangs in the balance.